Hello, everybody. Probably a little early, but I just want to go ahead and get things set up. Um, Hopefully, my chat is working tonight. Last night it wasn't, so I wasn't able to see when people were sending me a message for some odd reason. So if I don't see you pop up and I don't acknowledge you, it's because my stuff is acting up. Okay, I'm looking on my phone. I see see Carol's there. Oh, there it is. It's working. Hey, Sarah, how you doing? Sandra, I'm sorry. Say, how you doing? It's working. Wasn't working last night, so we're doing pretty good then. Um, Going to wait a few more minutes, give a few more people some time to sign on. Um, I've already surpassed the number of people that I've ever had at a live reading, so we're doing good. Hope everybody had a good day. I hope you're staying safe. I hope hey, Tina. I'm glad you were able to make it. Glad that hope everybody's staying safe and practicing social distancing and all the good things we have to do during this time, which is one of the reasons why I'm doing this. I don't get a chance to go to the cons like I want to, so I have to communicate this way. Plus, I've never done it before, and I want to try it out and see how it worked. Um, so that's Sarah. That's Tina. Sandra. Why do I keep calling you Sarah? But anyway, I'll talk a little bit before we get started. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Milton Davis, author, publisher, writer of science, sword and soul, anything that's based on African American culture and tradition from a fantasy point. And tonight I'm going to be reading one of my stories from an anthology that I've been working on for a while called Muscadine Wine. Once I give everybody a few more minutes, I'll give you some background on that, do a little housekeeping things that I want to do to kind of get you up to speed on some other things that's going on, and then we'll go from there. A few more people that I'm expecting that may come through. Gerald Squad. What's up, man? Congratulations on your story for the anthology. Shouldn't have expected anything less. I mean, hey, you hang out with me. Oh man, Marvin. Hey, Marvin, what's up, man? Yeah, Marvin's one of my old a Wildcat from Fort Valley State. Yeah, all right, then, man. Thank you for showing up, man. Thank you for showing some support. Love it, man. Love it. Knock around for a few more minutes. I want to talk a little bit. I want to say, give a few more shout outs to some other people. Squad, before we get going, kind of give you guys a heads up on some of the other things that are going on. Some of the people that I work with here in Atlanta. One of the groups I want to shout out is my local ATL State of Black Science Fiction crew. We've been meeting for about 2 years now. It's been a really good get together of creative people. We've done some projects together. We've done some cons together, different things like that. And it's been great. One of the things that we did together last year, well, actually the year before last, is the Terminus Anthology. And basically what it is a collection of stories, urban fantasy stories set in Atlanta. And 9 of us actually got together, wrote stories for it. So right now it's actually on sale from my website. So you can go check it out. Gerald has a story in it. I have a story in there. Balogun has a story in there. Some great stuff. So if you get a chance to take a look at it and check it out, I would recommend it, especially right now because I do have it on sale and I've got plenty of copies. So as soon as you order it, it'll be sent out to you. Another thing, hey Pat, how you doing? Homegirl, homegirl coming in, checking us out. The other thing I wanted to talk about was Jason. What's up? Is a project that I'm working on with, I think is some of the best people I've ever worked with. We're working on a 3D animation product based on a story I wrote called Playing the Odds. You might have seen this thing hanging around here. This is like the cover art that was done by Sean Hill, and the title and design was done by Jason Reeves. And it's a really cool project. We've got some of the best people I've ever worked with. Animators, voice actors, sound design, virtual reality, and it's a really great project. And one of the ways you can support the project is by buying the ebook. It's only 99 cents. It gives us a better support if you buy it from us directly because we get the whole 99 cents. But if we go through Amazon, all those guys, we get the 35%. But if you want to really support us, you can get a copy of this. You can also join our group, which is called Playing the Odds on Facebook, where we post updates and everything else, show you some of the new animation and all that kind of stuff that's going on. So you get a chance to take a look at it. I think you'll enjoy it. It's just a great project, and I'm really, really, really excited about it. So got a nice little crowd here. So I want to give you some background on the story that I'm reading and the anthology. Personally, I don't write a lot of stories based on my personal life and my experiences. I kind of did that deliberately. Wanted to stick more in creating worlds and imaginations and stuff. But lately, I've been reflecting back a lot on growing up in Georgia, growing up in the Columbus area, going to school in Middle Georgia, and thinking about some of my old experiences. So I wanted to talk about them, but not in a way where I would be very personal, or biographical or autobiographical. And the idea for these stories came up was to take some of my personal experiences, just some of the general things that I've gone through over the years, and put them in a fantastic setting. And that's where the whole idea for Muscadine Wine came from. Just to give a personal story, a friend of mine actually, back in the day, they used to have this thing that came on TV called the Ronco commercials, and they would sell all these things like pocket fishermen and all that kind of stuff. And they had a winemaking kit. So a friend of mine decided that he wanted to make wine. And this was like when we was in high school. So we said, okay, we want to make wine. Let's make muscadine wine, because we used to see muscadines in the woods all the time. So we went out and we picked the muscadines and we put them into the kit, and we did everything we were supposed to do. And we had to wait so many weeks for it to become wine. And then one day he called me and said, hey, man, the wine's ready. Let's do it. So went over his house, opened it up, drank the wine, and it was like drinking pure vinegar. My mouth was so tired I couldn't even speak. So that's kind of where the muscadine wine thing came from, because one of those experiences I went through as a young man growing up in Columbus. This particular story is more general. It's more about the experience of growing up in the South. It's a generational thing, and it's kind of a ghost story. So I read it a few months ago at the community grounds at a spoken word event, and it was received very well. So I decided I would read it tonight. So we're about 8 minutes in, got a nice little crowd. I think I'm just going to go ahead and read the story, and hopefully, a few more people may come in as we're going along. So again, the name of the story is Johnson's Farm. They came for Cody Johnson on a moonless night after a summer downpour. Fog covered their approach through the pines, mist rising like steam from the grass, air so humid it was hard to breathe. Every man creeping across the wet ground had no remorse for what they were about to do. Folks needed to know their place. They ought not strive for what they didn't deserve. The men felt justified. But Cody Johnson wasn't a fool. He slept with a double-barrel shotgun by his bed and a Colt revolver under the pillow. His hound dogs were trained to howl when the wind blew hard. He knew they would come for him sooner or later, and when they did, he'd be ready. The dogs wailed, and Johnson sat up in his bed. He grabbed his coveralls and shimmied into them. He took the Colt from under his pillow and put it in his right-hand pocket. Grabbing the shotgun, he ambled over to his bedroom window, the window that faced the woods behind the farm. The fog made it hard to see, but the dogs made it clear they were coming that way. I know y'all's there, Johnson shouted, and I know why y'all's here. I'm giving y'all one chance to go on back home. One chance. The men kept coming. They thought there was no way Johnson would fire on them. He was signing his death warrant if he did. Johnson went to his cabinet and got the shotgun shells. He was dead no matter what he did, but he wasn't leaving this world alone. He loaded the double-barrel shotgun and cocked the hammers. "One last chance," he shouted. Silas Kane, county deputy sheriff and wizard of the local Ku Klux Klan, had about enough of Johnson. He stood straight up, making himself seen. "Shut up, nigger," he shouted back. "You know good and damn well." Johnson fired both barrels into Silas's chest. The man flew back 20 feet and rolled up until he stopped at the forest edge, dead as a doornail. The other men pulled out guns and fired back as they fled for the woods. Johnson kept loading and shooting until he was out of shells. He took the revolver and shot more, striking Billy Wainwright in the knee, crippling the butcher for life. When Johnson finally ran out of bullets, the Klan rushed in. Malcolm Coldwater was the first through the door. Johnson hit him square across the mouth with the shotgun butt. Malcolm fell to the ground, cussing through his ruined teeth as the other men jumped over him and set about beating Johnson unconscious. Some of the men wanted to kill him right then and there, but Tom Crowder, president of Crowder County Bacon and Savings, wouldn't allow it. He was the senior commander since Silas got blown to hell. "We came to make an example out of this boy, and that's what we're going to do." They dragged Cody's unconscious body out of the house and loaded him into the back of Tim Foley's truck. The illicit caravan sped through the night to the massive red oak standing by the bank of Poor Man's Creek. They threw water on Johnson's face until he revived, tied a rope around his neck, then strung him to a low branch on a tree. "You asked for this, nigga," Tom Crowder shouted. The men cheered his word. Johnson glared at them. Not one ounce of fear in his eyes. "You sorry-ass crackers come to take my land because you ain't good enough to build something for yourself. But I swear before God Almighty, ain't nan one of you ever gonna live on my land. It's mine now, and it will always be." Johnson ended his words and with a wad of spit that landed on Tom Crowder's shoe. Tom gave Tim the signal and Tim sped away. Johnson dropped, but the men didn't get the show they were expecting. Johnson hung rigid like a slab of meat on the smokehouse, glaring until the life left his eyes. Someone from the crowd doused his body with kerosene and lit it afire. The men watching Johnson burn until the rope burned loose and the flaming body fell to the ground. The area was swept with a gust of cold wind that carried Johnson's ashes into the crowd, stinging the spectators' eyes and chilling them like a winter gale. The men hurried away, then the fairest deed done. The sheriff waited 3 days before sending his deputies to investigate the disturbance on Johnson's farm. They walked around the house, then returned to the station to file their bogus report. Johnson's farm was put up for sale since Johnson was never married and his kinfolks were too afraid to claim what belonged to them. An auction was held 2 weeks after Johnson's disappearance. A few colored farmers tried to participate, but they were run off by the sheriff and his deputies. Tom Crowder placed the highest bid, and the Johnson farm became a part of his growing farming empire, adding to his traditional family farm and the other lands he'd acquired by foreclosure and paying delinquent taxes. Tom paid a visit to the farm the next day. He was always impressed by Johnson's property. Cody did a good job keeping it productive, especially for a colored man. The fields were always neatly plowed and the harvest plentiful. His livestock was healthy and well-groomed. The truth was, Johnson's farm sat on some of the best farmland in the Georgia heartland, blessed with timely rain and a natural spring that provided irrigation water during the dry spells. Tom had big plans for the land. He was going to plant the largest peach grove the state had ever seen. He was walking back to his car when he heard a strange sound coming from the well. Tom shuffled over with a frown. The last thing he needed was some animal falling into the water source and contaminating it. He took off his hat, then peered inside, hoping to get a glimpse of the hapless beast. The last thing Tom Crowder saw was the sweet well water of Johnson's farm. Mr. Crowder's funeral was a spectacle. All the bank employees attended, as well as noted county officials and members of the Klan. The governor sent his representative. He didn't care much for Tom Crowder, seeing that he almost defeated him in the last election. No colored folks were in attendance, not that they would have been allowed. The county flags were flown at half-mast for a week in honor of a man who had spent his life in service to his fellow citizens in the state of Georgia. The Johnson's farm was up for bid again. Crowder's only son, Bocephus, was not a farmer and had no ambitions of expanding the family holdings. His daughter, Darlene, had long abandoned the family for the cosmopolitan life in Atlanta, and her twin, Charlene, was happy teaching third grade at the county elementary school for white children. A few colored farmers showed up again, and again they were turned away. Crowder was the richest man in the county, so the bidding didn't get as high. The farm was sold to a man who drove the truck from which Cody Johnson was hanged, Tim Foley. The Foley clan had scratched a meager living from the Georgia red clay long before the state was a state. They were simple folk. Their only significant achievements were losing 8 male family members during the War of Northern Aggression and protecting their farm from roving Yankees during the Sherman's March to the Sea. The boys usually dropped out of school in the 8th grade. The girls married and started families young. But Tim was ambitious. He fought against his father's wishes and graduated with a high school diploma and dreams of a better life. Those dreams were dashed when Tim's daddy died from a gunshot wound to the head during a disagreement after a game of dice behind Mr. Pritchard's country store. Since Tim was the eldest, the responsibility of the farm and the family fell on his narrow shoulders. The added burden failed to extinguish Tim's backwoods ambition. He found his path to fortune making moonshine, using his homegrown skill to build a larger still in the county and providing the local honky-tonks with cheap spirits. The business wasn't as lucrative as he hoped. There were many hands he had to grease to keep the law looking the other way. When the Johnson farm came up for bid again, Tim's goals were modest. He would clear the forest, selling the pines for pulpwood and the oaks for firewood. He'd divide the land into small plots and sharecrop it to white and colored folks too poor to afford to own land. Tim drove out to the land the day before he got the deed. The farm was still in good shape despite the lack of maintenance since Johnson's killing. He used the old key to enter the house. Everything was in order, although a bit musty and dusty. He opened the windows to let in the fresh summer air. He had a mind to stay the night, but he thought better of it. Daisy might think he was running around with Gertrude Potter. That was Wednesday nights, but Daisy wouldn't care. He strolled to the livestock pens near the woods. The chickens were nowhere to be found, but the mule was still in its gate. His ribs were starting to show from lack of food. Tim couldn't have any animal dying on him, at least not until he carried out his plans. He located the barn and found a pile of hay. With a pitchfork, he scooped up a mound and carried it to the mule, dropping it under the mule's head. The mule ate eagerly as Tom sauntered away, lighting a cigarette. As he walked behind the mule, a teeth-chattering wind blew up on him. That same wind caught a mud dauber, pushing the insect into the mule's flank. The mud dauber stung the mule. The mule cried out in pain, then kicked, its real hooves colliding with Tim's head and sending him into the great beyond. Daisy found Tim's body 3 days later. She called the sheriff. The deputies arrived an hour later and declared Tim's death accidental. Tim's relatives built him a fine casket and buried him in the family cemetery beside Daddy and the family war heroes. Once again, his ambitions had been denied. The Johnson's farm was up for bid again. The Foley family was too poor to maintain it, especially with Tim's untimely demise. The colored folks didn't show this time. They knew better. Johnson's farm was meant to stay his, and although he failed to protect it in the here and now, he was doing a fine job in the next. A crowd formed on the county courthouse steps, much smaller than previously and with much less enthusiasm. The man who won the bid wasn't a county resident. He hailed from nearby Tidwell County and was unknown to everyone in attendance. He paid for the land in cash right after the auction was complete, took the deed, hurried to his car, then sped away. Billy Ray Calhoun was a respectable man, as good as a white man could be for the times. Although he was a staunch believer in white supremacy, he believed that the Negro race should be respected and allowed to accomplish whatever its limited skills could achieve. He was well aware of the strange occurrences at Johnson's farm, but unlike others, Billy had connections in the Negro community. Not only did he know what plagued the farm, he also knew the solution. Billy hired Tommy Smalls to take him to nearby Cooter Swamp, where Miss Hattie resided. Tommy made him pay double for the price, just in case Miss Hattie cursed them both and he had to buy root remedies. It took a half a day to reach the pine rise where Miss Hattie lived, a tiny island surrounded by tea-colored water and cypress trees draped with Spanish moss. Billy stepped gingerly onto the moss-covered ground and tipped toward the house. It was a beacon surrounded by the dismal, a well-made structure painted white with blue windows and a blue door to keep the haints out. A small broom leaned against an old rocking chair, another precaution for any witches that might try to enter. Billy knocked on the door. "Is that you, Billy Calhoun?" A high-pitched voice called out. Billy hesitated before answering. He had not informed Miss Hattie of his visit. Yes, Miss Hattie, it's Billy Calhoun. Come on in here." Billy entered the house and was greeted by the smell of mothballs and jasmine. Miss Hattie's parlor was well appointed. There was no better furnished room south of Macon. "Take a seat," Miss Hattie called out. "I'll be in directly." Billy sat in a plush chair near the door, just in case he had to make a hasty exit. Miss Hattie entered the rooms moments later, and Billy Calhoun was stunned. The rumors were Miss Hattie was as old as the swamp and twice as ugly. The truth was the exact opposite. Miss Hattie stood as tall as most men, with smooth black skin and a pleasant youthful face that contrasted with the silver gray hair piled on top of her head. She wore a loose flowered house dress that hugged her shapely body near her breasts and hips. Miss Hattie carried a tray with 2 cups of steaming liquid. "Hello there, Billy," she said in a pleasant, disarming tone. "Do you like what you see?" Billy turned red as a beet. "I must say I do, Miss Hattie." Miss Hattie chuckled. "I meant the furniture. Had it shipped all the way from New Orleans." "Of course," Billy replied. It's beautiful." Miss Hattie offered Billy tea, then sat on the sofa opposite side of the room. Billy sipped his tea and felt a calm pass through his body. Miss Hattie grinned as she knew what he experienced. "This is excellent tea," he said. "I know," Miss Hattie replied. "It was Cody's favorite. He loved it as much as he loved his land." A chill gripped Billy as Miss Hattie uttered those words. He placed down his cup. "That's what I'm here to discuss, Miss Hattie," he said. "You probably already know that I purchased the deed to Cody's farm." "Mr. Johnson to you," Miss Hattie said. "You didn't know the man, and you don't have the right to call him by his first name." "I apologize," Billy said. "I never meant to offend. People in my county know that I always thought well of the Negro race." "Let's get down to it," Miss Hattie said. "You want me to help you lay claim to Cody's farm? You want me to lay Cody's spirit to rest?" "Yes, I do," Billy replied, "and I'm willing to pay whatever it takes to do so." $5,000, Miss Hattie said. Billy almost fell out of his chair. "What?" "You heard me right," Miss Hattie replied. "Cody never was able to get his full due from his land because of white folks, and I know full well that land would be worth what that land would be worth in your hands. You'll make more than enough." Billy rubbed his chin. "Still, that's a lot of money for a nigger," Miss Hattie finished. "You have a choice, Billy. Pay me and claim Cody's farm or leave." "Mama?" Billy looked to the source of the voice. A girl stood in the kitchen doorway, a mirror image to Miss Hattie. Miss Hattie looked at the girl and frowned. "Go on now, girl," she said. "This is grown folks' business." "Yes, ma'am," the girl said. She glanced at Billy, then backed into the darkness. Billy heard a screen door creak open and slam. "A sweet-looking child," Billy commented. "Who's the daddy?" "That's none of your business," Miss Hattie said. "Do we have a deal?" Billy leaned back in his chair. $5,000 is a lot of money for anyone, but I can understand what you're doing. You're looking out for yourself and your child. I think $2,500 is good enough." Miss Hattie stood. "Nice meeting you, Billy. I wish you luck in your new farm." Billy jumped to his feet. "That's it? You're not open to haggling?" "No," Miss Hattie replied. $5,000 or nothing." Billy surrendered. "I don't have that kind of money right now." "When you get it, send it by Tommy," Miss Hattie said. "I'll send you what you need." "How do I know I can trust you?" "You don't," Miss Hattie replied. "It's a risk you'll have to take. Goodbye, Billy. See yourself out." Billy Calhoun left Miss Hattie's house in a quandary. He'd purchased the Johnson farm for much less than it was worth, yet Miss Hattie's deal would bring the price slightly higher than he planned. But he had no choice. Cody Johnson's spirit had to be quelled. 3 days after their meeting, Billy Calhoun returned to Miss Hattie's house with $5,000. He knocked on the door. Instead of Miss Hattie, he was greeted by the girl. She held a burlap sack in one hand and a small box in the other. "Mama told me to give you this," she said. Billy took the bag and the box. He placed them on the porch and handed the girl an envelope with the money. "You make sure your mama get this, you hear?" The girl frowned. "I ain't no thief." "I know," Billy said. "Tell your mama I said thank you." Billy picked up the items and began to leave. "Wait a minute," the girl said. She handed Billy a folded piece of paper. "Instructions." The girl closed the door on him. Billy unfolded the note, then read it on his way back. "Inside the bag is another bag. After the next rain, spread the contents on the ground as well as you can. Once that's done, build a small fire outside the barn. Take half the contents of the small box and throw it into the fire. Take the rest of it home and brew it. Sprinkle a little on your shoes, then drink the rest. Cody won't worry you no more. Miss Hattie." When the rain came, Billy did as Miss Hattie instructed. The rain that soaked the farm appeared like divine intervention, a brief summer squall that released its blessing only on the farm and the nearby woods. Billy arrived on the property a few hours later, spreading the odoriferous concoction over the ground. It took a moment to start the fire on the damp grass. Once it was lit, Billy tossed half the contents of the box into the fire and was rewarded with the pleasant aroma of Miss Hattie's excellent tea. The fragrance canceled out the contents of the bag, restoring order to the farm. Billy drove home, kissing his wife and patting his dog's head as he brewed the tea. He dribbled some on his shoes as instructed, then spent the evening enjoying the remaining brew while reading the newspaper. Billy slept peacefully that night, expectant of the day ahead. The next morning, Billy's wife Carol awoke and prepared breakfast. She called out for her husband, then went to find him when he didn't answer. Billy lay in the bed, a pleasant look on his face. His wife smiled, then shook her husband to wake him. His head fell at an odd angle, and his wife covered her mouth in shock. Billy Calhoun had died in his sleep with dreams of the Johnson farm. The county coroner announced his findings on Billy's death 2 weeks after it occurred. Billy had been poisoned. The initial suspicion went to his wife, but everyone who knew the Calhouns vouched for Carol and her fathomless love for her husband. Time passed, and whispers became rumors. Those rumors were enough for the clan. On a moonless night, they gathered at the edge of Cuda Swamp, piled into their john boats, and set off for Miss Hattie's home. Once they reached the isolated abode, they opened fire, tearing the house apart with buckshot and 30-30 rounds. They landed their boats in an invasion of white robes, bursting into the house just to see their handiwork firsthand. They were disappointed. There was no one inside, nobody to claim and defile. They looted the home of whatever furniture or items undamaged by the gunfire and set the house ablaze. And I just got a whole bunch of blank pieces of paper before my next page. Once again, Johnson's farm was up for bid. This time, no one came. The message was clear to both colored folks and white people. Johnson's farm belonged to Cody Johnson. The land became part of county property where it languished, nature claiming what once belonged to her. Buildings decayed and collapsed. The only structure that withstood time was Johnson's home. Though vines found purchase on the walls, the building refused to succumb. It was as if Cody Johnson was inside holding up the walls himself. Decades came and went. The world changed and the state reluctantly conformed. The latest governor announced a highway would be built running the length of the state, and that highway would run through the county. Of course, those privy to such information quickly purchased the land and the state would claim, all except Johnson's farm. The highway came through with an army of bulldozers, levelers, and pavers, bringing a level of prosperity the county had never seen. Tax revenues swelled as did the pockets of the county officials. But due to the attention of the state and the country, the old political system was dismantled. The new liberal residents of the county clashed with the down-home folks as the county was dragged kicking and screaming into the 21st century. Through all the change and turmoil, Johnson's farm remained untouched. One warm day in March, 10 minutes after the property office of the new county government building opened for business, The old-time bell rang as a tall, umber-skinned woman entered the building walking with a regal stride. Her floral print dress matched the head wrap that towered over her, her matching hoop earrings and septum ring complementing her bracelets. The clerk looked at her in wonder. She was definitely not from around these parts. "May I help you?" the clerk asked with a syrupy southern drawl. "Yes," the woman answered. "I'd like to inquire about purchasing a certain property." "Do you have the paperwork?" the clerk asked. "Yes." The woman handed the clerk the survey papers. "I think it's called Johnson's Farm." The clerk tensed. She unrolled the survey documents and nodded. "Yes, this is the property." "Excellent." The woman took off her shades, revealing her dark brown eyes. "Do you know who I should speak to about purchasing this property?" "That land belongs to the county," the woman said, "although I'm not sure you would want to purchase it." The woman's smile faded. "Is it for sale?" "Yes." "Then I wish to purchase it." The clerk hesitated and the woman rolled her eyes. This isn't about to get racial, is it?" she said. "Because if it is, I am more than willing." The clerk shook her head. No, it's not that. Claymont County is very progressive. It's just what?" The woman hesitated. She wasn't about to get tangled in a racial discrimination lawsuit over a haunted piece of property. Besides, whoever this woman was, she wasn't local. She wasn't worth the warning. "Nothing, ma'am," the clerk said. "I apologize if I offended you." "Apology accepted," the woman said with a smile. "My lawyer will be here in a week to handle the details. I hope the land will still be available." "It will," the clerk said. "Thank you so much," the woman replied. She turned with a flourish and strode out of the building, leaving a vacuum of style in her wake. Her lawyer arrived a week later, as she promised, and after 80 years, the Johnson farm had a new owner. The legal documents listed the woman's name as Naomi Sunshine. As was the nature of folks in Claymont County, the local folks tried to discover who was this woman and why did she come to the county. Some said she favored the Dawsons. Others thought she might be related to that Rooks boy who played quarterback for Fox Valley State College, then went to the pros. Whoever she was, Naomi came to Claymont County with a purpose. Not only did she buy the Johnson's property, she purchased the old Crowder land and pine plantation that used to be Foley property. But the only property she developed was Johnson's farm. Every company hired to do the work on the property was Black owned. If a local Black company wasn't available, a company was hired from out of town. The property was cleared and a small home was constructed a few yards behind the original home. It was when renovations began on the original home that the locals took notice. Although most of the people who lived during those earlier dark days had gone on to glory, the story of Johnson's farm lingered. Would some tragedy befall Miss Sunshine? Only time would tell. Miss Sunshine's plans for the old house were revealed when she finally applied for a business permit. The house was to be transformed into a vegan restaurant, the first in the county. Most of the vegetables would be grown on the farm. Miss Sunshine hired local Black farmers to clear, plant, and maintain the land. By the time Miss Sunshine returned, she'd become a local celebrity. The restaurant opened with great fanfare and became an instant success. Sunshine, as the restaurant was named, became a favorite stop for the health-conscious, road-weary, and the local vegan community. Naomi was the perfect hostess. Although she didn't work in the restaurant, she would often stroll from her house to talk to customers or would be seen tending the fields of her garden. Local and state news channels clamored to interview this young, budding entrepreneur, but she refused them all. Fulton Albright, station owner of WTAQ-TV, The Sound of the South, arrived at his office one Monday morning and received a pleasant surprise. The mysterious Naomi Sunshine finally agreed to an interview. He requested Brandon Calhoun, which was a great choice. Fulton assembled his crack team and sent them immediately to the restaurant. Naomi greeted them with her warm smile, leading the crew to a table near the busy kitchen. Brandon Calhoun, a straw blonde local boy, former football standout, and communication graduate from the University of Georgia, flashed his perfect smile as he entered the establishment. When they reached the table, Brandon, being the Southern gentleman that he was, pulled Naomi's chair out for her before sitting and checking his mic. "Thank you for allowing us to interview you, Mr. Sunshine," he said. "It's my pleasure," Naomi replied. I must say you've accomplished so much in such a short period of time. That's my nature. Once I get my mind on something, it gets done with a quickness. Brandon laughed. You've put Claymont County on the map. You could have built your restaurant anywhere. Why here? I wanted to return to my roots, Naomi said. Brandon's eyebrows rose. Your roots? Yes, I grew up in Atlanta, but my great-grandmother was from Claymont. That is fascinating, Brandon said. My family has been here for generations. She may be someone I know. Yes, likely, Naomi replied. My grandmother told me there were a few good white people in the county back in the day. Maybe your family was in that group. I would like to think so, Brandon said. Thank goodness for progress. Indeed, Naomi replied. A waiter came from the kitchen carrying a tray with 2 cups and a teapot. Ah, Brandon said. Is this some of Miss Sunshine's famous organic tea? Yes, it is, Naomi said. I've been dying to try it. Naomi poured Brandon a cup, and he took a sip. This is fantastic. Thank you. It's a blend handed down from my great-grandmother. The rumor is that she was a root worker. Brandon sipped more of the tea before placing his cup down. Let's talk about that. Well, the family story is that my great-grandmother came into some money, then she left the county and moved to Atlanta. She started a business. I hate my printer. She started a business and was able to send my grandmother to school. She graduated from Spelman, then moved to Washington, D.C. My mother and I were born there. And your mother? She graduated from Howard and became a doctor. Brandon sipped more tea. I guess the medical profession wasn't for you. It wasn't my cup of tea, Naomi replied with a smile. And the rest is history, Brandon said. You know I have a link to this property as well. My great-grandfather owned it briefly. Unfortunately, he took ill and died before he could develop it. You mean Bill Calhoun? Brandon's smile faded. Yes, that's him. Naomi smiled. I did my research too. My great-grandmother was known around here as Miss Hattie Johnson to be exact. My grandmother was 5 when she left the county. Brandon winced and rubbed his stomach. It seems this tea doesn't agree with me. Really? I'm surprised. Brandon stood and wobbled. I think we're done here. It was interesting talking to you, Naomi. Miss Sunshine, Naomi corrected. Before you go, I have something for you. Brandon's eyebrows rose. For me? Well, not exactly. Naomi reached behind the counter and picked up a pink envelope. Give this to your grandmother. She's still with us, isn't she? Yes, she is. She lives in Tidwell County. Naomi smiled. That's nice. You make sure that she gets that. Brandon nodded. I will. The TV crew packed their gear and left the restaurant. Naomi had Brandon's tea put in a to-go cup, and the crew headed back to the station with the scoop of the year. Later that day, Brandon drove out to Grandma Betty's house. Grandma Betty sat on the screened in front porch as she always did in the afternoon, enjoying the sun and her azaleas. Brandon sauntered up to the porch, the pink envelope from Miss Sunshine's in his hand. She greeted her grandson with a hug and kiss. Grandma, I interviewed Naomi Sunshine today, Brandon said. That colored gal who owns a restaurant off the highway, Grandma said. Brandon frowned. We don't call them colored anymore. Anyway, she told me to give this to you. Brandon handed Grandma the envelope. Betty opened it. I can't read this, she said. Go get me my glasses. Brandon entered the house and found Grandma's reading glasses on the coffee table in the parlor. Betty put on her glasses and read the paper. It was a check written to her daddy, Billy Calhoun, for $5,000. Included with the check was a note. Oh, she fainted. Brandon shook Grandmama back to consciousness. What's wrong, he asked. Grandma gave him the note. Hope you enjoyed the tea, Miss Hattie. The end. So that was Johnson's Farm. I hope you guys enjoyed it. It's a story that actually comes from my experiences being in Middle Georgia. I went to school at Fort Valley State, spent a lot of time in Macon in that area. So it has a kind of a lot of connotations to that. So that's what it's all about. Anybody have any questions, comments, curses, anything like that? I'm not sure when the anthology is going to come out. So far, I've finished 3 stories. I got a few more. I'm trying to shoot for it to be done by the end of the year. If so, I will have it completed for probably for Christmas or the following 2021. Again, guys, thank you for coming and listening to the story. Let me know how you feel as we go along, and if you'd like to hear more stories. And have a good evening. Thanks. Bye.